America Decides, and Channels Television is right on top of the situation. It's the live coverage of the U.S. presidential election here in our studios in Lagos. And, well, I'm here with my colleague, Tokwe Fagbemi, and we've been talking with Mr. Muyiwa Shobo, a former U.S.-based legal practitioner. Well, before we took the break, we were talking about, the presidential candidate of the Democratic Party, Mrs. Hillary Clinton. Now, one question that comes to my mind is that of gender. We touched on that. But, when she ran as an aspirant against President Obama, she gave him a very good run for his money. Yeah. Now, she is actually the candidate of the Democratic Party. But I'd like to know, to what extent has gender played in her favor and against her?
Well, in her favor, because she was able to come up with certain policy programs, like, the child care issue and so on. So,
all right, Mr. Shobo, yeah. Before you answer that question, our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Maria Bird, is standing by. Let's hear from her, and then we'll return to you. Hello, Maria. All right, can you give us a feel of what's happening where you are covering the polls in the United States? Well, we're still trying to establish effective contact with Maria Bird. We had her on moments ago, but then we appear to have lost her again, but we'll be returning to her. And so back to you, Mr. Muyiwa Shobo, the issue of yes. Gender playing for or against Mrs. Clinton.
For her, because, for instance, when she came up with the issue of equal pay for women,
a lot of women could identify with that immediately, only because she's a woman, and she's looking at it from that perspective, from their perspective. So that's to her advantage, and a lot of policy proposals she has. Now against her is this issue of sexism, that people still, in the United States, there's no equal pay for between men and women. You still talk about the issue of child care. You talk about the issue of health care and so on and so forth. So, but for the most part, it's just like it's a man's world in that country for a very, very long time. So it's taking some folks quite a while to even get the idea that a woman, I love it. Because I think the advantage to it is just like our boys, our male children were inspired by Obama's presidency. I'm looking forward to our female children being inspired by her presidency, which is a good thing. Because if you look all over the world, I mean, there must be some equality. That is not the case. You remember that way back, women are not even allowed to vote in the United States. So you have that history, just comparable to what blacks faced in that country. So that is still behind some people's mind, especially as the poll shows, you're talking about less educated white folks. They have a way of life that is so totally against the candidacy of a female person or a female politician.
Okay, so let's keep it balanced. We've been discussing Hillary Clinton. Now let's talk about Donald Trump. Now he has upset a lot of world leaders with his rhetoric. For instance, the French president says Donald Trump makes him want to retch. The former Mexican president, Felipe Calderon, says Donald Trump is crazy. The former British Prime Minister, David Cameron, says his remarks are divisive, stupid, wrong. I mean, I could go on and on. He has upset so many people. How can he overcome all these obstacles just if he becomes the president of the United States?
It's going to, you've got to look at the world. It's going to be a little bit difficult because from what he has said, all those rhetorics you mentioned, all these world leaders already form an opinion of him. So they are, for instance, he said they're going to remove the defense agreement with Japan, and also the Japan should have a nuclear weapon, and all. So they have that thin opinion about him. So he will have to work extra hard to bring those world leaders home and assure them all over again that he didn't mean all those things that he said, and that will make America actually look really bad, you know. So, for instance, he said something, and the stock market just tumbled. I mean, he just the fact that, whoa, he could become president. So, if the French Prime Minister or President is saying things, the Prime Minister of Japan is saying things, Mexico is saying, I mean, if he won, he will have to work very, very hard to regain the trust of these world leaders.
Well, we have talked about world leaders who have actually said some very uncomplimentary things about Mr. Trump, but then in the Russian president, he also has a very, very strong ally, maybe I'll say admirer. You know, they've said very pleasant things about each other. I'm talking about the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. And let's say next to the United States of America, Russia is probably the most powerful country on earth. So the sort of relationship we've seen between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin, what does that do for the global balance of power?
It's dangerous. Quite dangerous. I'm telling you that because Putin actually sees his reflection in Trump.
All right, hold the thought, Mr. Shobo. Very interesting thought there, but I understand our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Maria Bird, is on now. Well, Maria, could you give us a feel of how it has proceeded in the U.S., in Washington, where you are?
Definitely a power people are looking at. They don't know what's going to happen after President Obama leaves office in just a few months now. So this is really a very serious time, very nervous time for many.
Well, we're expecting results to start trickling in any moment now, because moments ago we had visuals of people casting their final ballots, but would like to know from you, when exactly are we going to start expecting the results effectively?
Yes, we should see some, especially in the state of Virginia. We should probably start seeing some votes and some results coming in around the 8 o'clock hour in the evening. So it's about an hour from now. But, you know, it just depends on how many electoral votes through. Depends on what some of these swing states decide to do. We have Arizona, which their projections could become red, which is on the western side of the country. You also have states like that are swing states. And so it depends on what states do it. We see some more red votes or states go red. We could really be seeing a long night for many Americans who are really waiting up to see what the results will be. That's for the rest of the world as well.
Now, Maria, we're getting reports that Donald Trump is suing a polling booth in Nevada for early voting. What's that all about? What more can you tell us about that?
You know, many people have been saying that they were waiting to see if he was going to try to create some discussions around fraudulent votes and the fraudulent activities. Now, we know that the judge overruled the law. We know that it could be potentially something that he set the stage for this. Obviously, many Americans hope that regardless of what shows that both candidates will be able to at least or claim their victory instead of us having a couple of days long, debate over who will win and having the Supreme Court and the courts to get involved in this election.
So, Maria, tell us about the security situation in the area where you are now. We got reports earlier last week that there could be a terror attack in the United States on Election Day. Is that threat still very much in place?
Election Day has been very quiet in the U.S. I think there were various issues surrounding potentially ISIS, obviously Russia, email, and hacking issues with our internet systems, but it's been very quiet. I'm very hopeful that we get all the way through midnight, all the way through to the next day without any serious issues. See, obviously, around the polling stations, you see some security, nothing that's over the top, nothing that would nervous or afraid to get out the road.
Well, Maribeth, thank you so much for giving us updates on what's happening there. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue our live coverage of the U.S. election 2016. Please stay with us.